Hello everyone, welcome to all. This is Dr. Vignesh Parmekha, Assistant Professor of Geography, Government Degree College for Women's, Begumpet, Hyderabad. Here we shall discuss about agriculture, types, land use, cropping pattern and production. In the present session, we will focus on the following points: introduction to agriculture, definitions of agriculture, evolution of man and agriculture, geographical factors influencing agriculture. As a part of this heading, we will focus on natural factors, economic factors, social factors, and political factors. Firstly, we will look into introduction to agriculture. In the growth of sedentary human civilization, agriculture is the key development. Domestic species farming provided for food surplus that promoted people to live in towns and cities. You all know that the history began some 1,000 years ago. Over 10,000 years ago, the domestication of animals such as pigs, sheep, cattle were started. Plants were cultivated independently in 11 regions of the world. In the 20th century, industrial agriculture on the basis of large scale came and dominated agriculture production started. An estimated number of around 2 billion people still depend on subsistence agriculture in the world. Agriculture means the science and art of producing crops and livestock for the economic purposes. Agriculture is an art of raising plant life from the soil for the use of mankind. Agriculture is the milestone in the history of human civilization. Due to agriculture, man settled at particular places. The major agricultural products are broadly grouped into food crops, fiber crops, fuel crops, and other raw material crops. Over 1/3 of the world's workers are employed in agriculture sector, and after that to the service sector. What is agriculture? Agriculture is the form of economic activity, including within its denotation a wide range from simple to highly complex of systems of utilizing the soils for the production of foodstuffs or raw materials for human use. Agriculture not only includes cultivation but also stock ranching, dairy forestry, lumbering, and host of other economic activities. Etymologically, the term agriculture is derived from two Latin words, namely agere and culture. Agere or agri meaning soil and cultura meaning cultivation. Agriculture meaning the soil cultivation. Agriculture is an applied science which encompasses all aspects of crop production, including horticulture, livestock rearing, fisheries, and forestry, etc. etc. Agriculture is defined in the Agricultural Act in 1947 as including horticulture, fruit growing, seed growing, dairy farming, and livestock breeding and keeping, the use of land as grazing land, medieval land, market gardens, and nursery grounds, and the use of land for woodlands, where that use ancillary to the farming of land for agricultural purposes. In other words, agriculture is defined as an art, science, and business of producing various crops and livestock for economic purposes. Agriculture is an art. It embraces knowledge of the way to perform the operations of the farm in a skillful manner, but does not necessarily include an understanding of the principles underlying the main underlying the farm practices. Agriculture as a science, it utilizes all technologies developed on the scientific principles such as crop breeding, production techniques, crop protection, economics, etc., to maximize the yield, profit, and production. For example, new crops and varieties developed by hybridization, transgenic crop varieties resistant to pests and diseases, hybrids in each crop, hybrids as fertilizers responsive varieties, water management, herbicides to control weeds, use of biocontrol agents to combat pests and diseases, etc. Agriculture as a business. As long as agriculture is the way of life of the rural population, production is ultimately bound to consumption. But agriculture as a business aims at maximum net return through the management of land labor, water, and capital, employing the knowledge of various sciences for production of food, feed, fiber, and fuel. In recent years, agriculture is commercialized to run as a business through mechanization. Next, we look into the evolution of man and agriculture. There are different stages in the development of agriculture, which is oriented with the human civilization. They are hunting, pastoral, crop culture, and trade. These are the stages of the human civilization. Now, let us look into these developmental stages of agriculture in detail. Hunting. It was the primary source of food for the man in the olden days. It is an important occupation and it existed for a very long period until they learned domesticating animals, growing crops, etc., etc. The second, the pasture. Human beings obtained their food through the domestication of animals. Example, dogs, horses, cows, buffaloes, pigs, etc. They lived in the periphery of the forest and they had to feed is domesticated animals. For feeding his animals, he would have migrated from one place to another place in search of food as nomads. It was not comfortable, and they might have enjoyed the benefit of staying in one place near the riverbed in the olden days in search of food for the feeding for the domestication animals. Third is crop culture. By living near the riverbeds, man had enough water for his animals and domesticated crops and started cultivation step by step. Thus, he has started to settle in a place where it was suitable for cultivation as well as for the rearing animals. Then the fourth is trade. When man has started producing more than is a requirement, the excess food exchanged. This is the basis for trade and commerce. When agriculture has flourished, resultantly trade developed. This led to the infrastructure development like roads, routes, etc. Agriculture became civilized from crop culture stage. Some important events for different periods that led to the development of scientific agriculture. Now, we will look into the factors, geographical factors influencing the agriculture. The agriculture growth and development is always directed and determined by the physical, economic, social, and political factors. In fact, geographical factors also play a vital role in agricultural development in spite of the technological and scientific development. The important factors influencing agriculture are given as the following. They are 1. Natural factors, 2. Economic factors, 3. Social factors, and 4. Political factors. Now, we look into the natural factors. The natural factors that affect agriculture most are A. Climate, mainly temperature and precipitation, B. Soil, and C. Topography. Most of these factors can be modified to some extent by man's effort. For example, man carries water to land where there is a little rain or supplies fertilizers to soil that are deficient in plant food. If it is necessary, man will adapt his agriculture to conditions that he cannot overcome. Now we will focus on the various natural factors affecting the agriculture. A. Climate. All forms of agriculture are largely by the temperature. Areas deficient in heat are deficient in agricultural production. But that is one element of climate that man has not been able to create at economic cost on a large scale. Temperature determines the growth of vegetation through determining the length of the vegetative period. Successful agriculture therefore requires a fairly long summer. In higher latitudes, however, the shortness of summer is compensated by the longer duration of the day. The total amount of heat received is enough for a ripening of crops. In lower latitudes, where the winters are never too cold to arrest the growth of vegetation, practically the whole year is the growing period, and agricultural operations are timed according to the supply of rainfall. The moisture requirements of plants vary according to the heat received. In the higher latitudes, where the summers are not very hot or where the winds are not dry, the amount of moisture given out by plant transportation is less than in the lower latitudes, where the heat received are great and the capacity of the winds to suck up moisture considerable. The plants therefore require less moisture in the temperature regions than in the tropical regions. Thus, a certain amount of precipitation may be sufficient for flourishing agriculture in the temperature regions, while the same may not suffice for meager agriculture in the tropical regions. Soil is a rich soil in plant food is the chief requirement of successful development of agriculture. It is essential as a support for plants and as the main medium whereby water and all plant foods except carbon dioxide are brought to the roots of the plants where they are absorbed. Soils that are poor either chemically or in texture have low productivity both in amount and variety. And the topography affects agriculture as it relates to soil erosion, difficulty of tillage, and poor transportation facilities. Mechanization of agriculture depends entirely on the topography of land. On rough, hilly lands, the use of agricultural machinery is impossible. In areas where the pressure on soil is great, even the slopes of mountains are terraced into small farms to provide agricultural land. In China, farm terraces may be seen clinging to hillsides to a height of several thousand feet. It is known that in extreme cases, agriculture may succeed in conquering slopes of as much as 45 degrees. The second factor is economic factors. And there are some other internal factors that impacts agriculture development. They are: 1. Market, B. Transportation facilities, 3. Labor, and 4. Capital. Now, market. Relation to the market generally determines the character of farming. For the cost of transport to the market will generally affect the competitive power of the agricultural output. Places away from the market will generally grow such things which cannot afford the cost of the transport to the market. 2. The transportation facilities. Transportation facilities in commercial type of farming play a significant role. Indeed, they determine its genius. In regions far flung from markets and ill-equipped with transportation facilities, commercial farming is a remote possibility. The term truck farming bears the unmistakable influence of transportation facilities on agricultural development. Third is labor. Labor supply determines the character of agriculture. Intensive agriculture is essentially labor intensive and exemplifies the woman pressure on labor. Agriculture requires skilled labor that can appreciate the suitable relations of the seasons and soils with crops and adopt the requisite cultural practices. Again, it is the supply of agricultural labor that determines the timely sowing, harvesting, and other cultural practices and ensure good returns. The fourth is capital. The modern mechanized farming has become capital intensive to a large extent. The Occidental farmer has to invest large amount of capital in agriculture because he has to buy agriculture machinery and chemical fertilizers. And the third factor impacting the agriculture is social factors. Social factors affect farming in a number of ways. The type of farming practiced, be it shifting cultivation, subsistence farming, extensive cerealial cultivation, or mixed farming, etc., is always related to regional social structure. Social factors can also affect the type of crops that are grown. These social factors are more effective in tribal culture. Another way in which social factors can affect agriculture is in the ownership and inheritance of land. In many parts of the world, the land of your father is divided between his children. This leads to the breaking of already small farms into smaller units or holdings, which are often uneconomic to farm, as in case of India. And the fourth factor is political factor. Political factors also play a vital role in agriculture development. The political system, that is the capitalistic, communistic, or the socialistic system, determines the pattern of agriculture. For example, in China, agriculture is fully controlled by the government. Similar was the case of the former USSR. On the other hand, in USA, Canada, and in most of the other countries of the world, agriculture is a private concern. The government policies regarding land, irrigation, marketing, trade, etc., have a direct impact on the agriculture development. Similarly, subsidies, loan facilities, purchase policies, agricultural marketing, and international trade and tax policy of the government also have a direct impact on agricultural production and its development. So far, we dealt with introduction to agriculture, definitions of agriculture, evolution of man and agriculture, geographical factors influencing agriculture.